steering wheel. Lawson steering wheel, yeah. Give him steering wheel. Hey, steering wheel. Somebody tell him to give it to him. Come on! Whoa!
Your leg, my please. Your leg.
How the f*** is this possible?
I'm driving like a grandma. Get that, Ralph? Did you hear me? Sauber radio. Ralph, acknowledge. Now, come on, close him down and kill him. We've got a lunatic on the track down that interstate.
I am so annoyed.
Boys and girls, your attention, please.
Hello and welcome back inside the Park from May for podcast number 949. This is the Belgian Grand Prix review, and this is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
A.K.A. Negative Camber. You know what we do on race weekends.
We watch one, then we talk about it. Then we watch one, then we talk about it. Come on, Todd.
It makes sense to me. Why wouldn't we talk about it? But before talking about the, well, it's kind of a dull Belgian Grand Prix, but we're going to make it exciting. But in order to do that, I got to go find an actual race car driver who also happens to be the sporting manager of the Heart of Racing, Aston Martin racing team, the Valkyrie, the GT3. Whew. This CV is getting huge, people.
Come out of the wasteland. He's bad. He's beautiful. He's crazy.
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charles, the International.
Paul, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah. Got my Spa shirt on. Bought this from Spa itself, since I was only there a couple of weeks ago.
You were. Yeah. You were just there.
I was just there.
You didn't have a moment in Pouhon. Well, you didn't run over track limits at Radion.
Probably did. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Probably did. All right, fair enough. Well, you didn't lift in Eau Rouge. I know that.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, probably did that too. But it depends on the cars, right? That's one thing. That's the one thing. I mean, the track is amazing. Every corner you get to is a classic corner and challenge.
Yeah.
But as the track and the track has evolved, the cars have evolved. It's become less and less for a Formula One car, right? There's so many more full throttle moments than there are braking moments, which it's changed a little bit. So we may see something different next year. But
we might. And I've asked you this on previous Spa Belgian Grand Prix reviews, I know, Paul, but having driven that circuit in anger, you're right. Eau Rouge was not flat. And I remember the days with, Jacques Villeneuve and those guys trying to take it just balling the car up into the barriers, trying to take it flat. And now, on dry weather, it's flat. But like Suzuka, right? With the car's evolution, now all of a sudden Degners are the real challenge, and Pouhon is the real challenge. But of the corners, if you think about it, obviously Eau Rouge is majestic. You've got Malmedy, you got Pouhon, Stavelot. Which corner do you particularly like?
Well, I like you all, except for the last chicane. But challenging wise, Pouhon, the entry to Pouhon is very challenging.
Is it?
To get that right, because it's really, you want to take as much speed in there as you can, and you don't want to upset the balance of the car, because as soon as you do that, you're in no man's land in the corner. Yeah. So the transition from slowing down just enough, but not any more than you need to, and getting that momentum and kick out of there is probably, in my mind, the biggest challenge. Obviously, Eau Rouge going up to Radion, you want to get everything right. If it's not right, it's very wrong. So that's when you straighten your wheel and you get your track limits. But I would say though, they're all great corners.
They're all good.
But Pouhon, I say, is most difficult to get right consistently.
Yeah. Well, I go back and I say this every year we review Belgium. I go back to your brother. In his comment, which I thought was profound when I interviewed him many years ago, and we were talking about tracks, and I know you believe the same thing because, you're a Charsley. I think it was required by law, but he had told me that one time that what makes Spa so good is it's perfect, absolutely perfect in its imperfections.
Right,
and that's what makes it so good.
Yep. And we're still fighting that, right, with the safety standards and why we didn't go to green, because everything isn't homogenized and laid out there. There's still some peril, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember the original Spa circuit, the long Spa circuit,
Yeah.
with the Master Kink and all that. And I remember many years ago, I interviewed Brian Redman, and I've said this on the podcast too. But Brian told me that Jackie Stewart's wrong. Jackie always said the Green Hell's the scariest racetrack. He goes, no way. Spa, in its original form, was so much faster and so much scarier. He said every time he had to race there, he wouldn't sleep a wink all night. He'd just lay in bed in cold sweats, fearing it. And that's how scary it was.
I mean, take a ride on some of those in-car videos from back then.
Like the old Porsche 917s and stuff there. Ooh, long tails.
Yeah, with the drinking straws as the framework for the body to hang on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's crazy. No. Well, no one will ever tell you this about Spa, so I'm going to. Do you know it can be raining on one part of Spa and not the other?
Wow.
Yeah, certainly the weather certainly was a talking point going into this weekend as Friday evolved, and then Saturday for the sprint. Everybody pretty much knew there was going to be rain there. In the area on Sunday, it would rain up until the race, or would it start at the race? And it was kind of right there, just before the race, and then it put this delay. And then the rain stopped, and there was like this 15-20 minute window. A lot of the pundits, even Sky Crofty and the guys, are saying, let's get started now in this break and bring on a proper race. Certainly Max was saying, this is silly. Let's go have a wet race, and et cetera, et cetera. So the criticism was out there that it was an hour and 20-minute delay, and then the criticism began. Well, they started like 20 minutes late. They could have started like 20 or half an hour ago, and it started late, and this became a concern. And then I watched Ted's notebook. I tend to agree with Ted. Ted was a lot more animated about it than I'm going to be, but he's like, why can't we have a wet race anymore? And I've said that. I don't need Ted's endorsement to say this. I've been saying it for several years with the wet tires. Anytime for the last 5 or 6 years, anytime a race is wet enough to require the full wets, they tend to just red flag it anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So why haul all the wet tires as Ted positioned? Why even ship them all around if you're just going to red flag every race that would require full wets? It's a close run thing. After the race, they interviewed all the drivers, and I think majority of them say versus Max. Interesting. The guys that you would consider at the top of the grid, Max, Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, the guy, these guys. Yep. All of them were saying, we should have went and should have went earlier. And then the rest of the grid, down the grid, no. They all agreed. Yeah, maybe it was a little late, but the FIA definitely made the right call. And there's some precedent to that, Paul, with what happened to Antoine Hubert.
Right.
We say, well, we don't have any wet races. We need wet races. Then you have a Jules Bianchi situation, Suzuka. And then all of a sudden, well, we shouldn't be racing in the wet. It's a fine line. It's a difficult discussion on both parts. I tend to fall in the camp of let's have a wet race. And I understand the spray, and maybe that's something they've got to work on with the cars and the tires, because
they tried to.
And they did. Yeah.
And they failed miserably, evidently.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Because if you think, there's a part of me, correct me if I'm off, I'm just spitballing, I'm thinking out loud here. But you remember when you and I were growing up watching wet races, they raced in far wetter conditions than we saw here. Oh,
absolutely. Remember James Hunt's championship winning race
76.
in Fuji? I mean, they probably shouldn't have been racing in that. There was
probably.
Some pretty nasty stuff, yeah.
But the amount of spray and everything was bad, but probably wasn't as bad as what we're seeing now.
Yeah, hard to say.
Hard to say. I don't know. It'd be my guess. But anyway, I don't know, Paul. How do they solve this problem?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of issues, right? I mean, the one issue is that no one likes this wet tire. It doesn't have... Yeah. It's only good for a couple of laps by these drivers, and then they just want to get to the intermediates as quickly as possible. It had a matter, and as you said, what the spray is bad. Well, they've tried different things to try and eliminate the spray, and everything they've tried has not worked at all. Yeah. So it's really a monsoon tire that they're never going to race in a monsoon. So why bother, right? So I know they're going to do some work in the off season and try and come up with a new option that supposedly works better and has more realistic kind connotations to use in a race rather than just try and get rid of it after a lap or so.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that evolves. It definitely is something they should be working very, very hard at, because there's no point in trucking these tires all around the world and not using them. And the FIA, I think, are just very, they just want to hold themselves back from actually releasing the cars on those tires, perhaps because of that reason. So then they waited it out for the intermediates, and then they were like, well, maybe we can do a standing start. So then they waited even longer, and then by that time the track was nearly dry, right? So I think the FIA made the mistake of not having a definite place of what they wanted to achieve. They kept changing their mind, and that kept pushing the race back, and also pushed the actual restart of the race back as well.
Right.
I saw some comments on the tire situation. Hey, if you can't race on that tire, why not just make the teams go on that tire for those reconnaissance laps? That would displace a lot more water rather than sitting there waiting, right? You sit there twiddling your thumbs, the water's sitting there. If you get 20 F1 cars around on a monsoon tire driving around, not under race conditions, they'll get rid of a lot more water, and we'll get back to proper race conditions a lot quicker. So I thought that was actually a really legitimate idea. Maybe these pace car laps, they mandate what tire you run, and everyone comes in, puts their intermediates on, and then you drop the green flag or do a standing start or whatever. But
I feel like it's a part, not to sound like put my marketing hat on, but this is a product of Formula One. It's one of their products that they race in the rain.
Yeah.
And they always have. So there's a legitimate history of them racing in the rain. I feel like this is a portion of their product portfolio they really need to do a deep dive in, working with Pirelli, working with the teams. What can they do on wet, pretty heavy wet, rainy weekend races where they can still deliver a exciting yet as safe as possible? You're never going to mitigate all the risk, but as safe as possible race that fans will enjoy and that Formula One can do, because it's always been. Just to juxtapose for a minute, Paul, I don't know if this is worth a discussion or not. If not, we can bail out. But when you look at Formula One intermediates, and then as you juxtapose that with your own series, say IMSA or WEC, how do you see those differences in how WEC approaches or IMSA approaches wet with wet tires, full wet tires versus racing in the rain in Formula One? Yeah,
well, obviously we don't have an intermediate option, so that stops that, right?
Yeah.
And there is there's always a crossover, but the wet tire does have longevity to it till it gets dry, and it seems, and functionability to it as well. But it seems like this monsoon tire doesn't have any functionability, and even when it's even just wet, the tire is just god awful and slow, and no F1 team or driver wants to be on a slow tire. So on IMSA WEC you only have one option of wet, but it is a very competent tire to run on over several laps, and then whenever the crossover is, then you make a decision when to come in for slicks.
Would IMSA have raced or WEC have raced in the wet that you saw at Belgium at the beginning?
I would think so, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And the amount of spray from the IMSA, from GT3s and LMP1s, those kind of things, or the hypercars, is that not as bad as F1?
I'm not sure. It's really hard to tell. I mean, we raced, if you look at Indy last year, we raced in some pretty big rain. Yeah. And there wasn't a lot of visibility there at all.
But you have wipers.
You have wipers, we do, and headlights and stuff like that. But and there, GT cars, even hypercars, are an easier car to drive in the rain than a Formula car.
Formula One car. Yeah. I agree.
So it's
tough
hard
to compare.
It is. But I think the big thing is the track. I think if it was that same rain, a different track, that maybe the race they wouldn't have been so worried about it. But definitely the Eau Rouge Raidillon part is a big issue, right?
It is a big issue, and you don't have to look any further than Antoine Hubert's mom, who was there, in the garage.
Right.
And to see such a stark reminder of just how lethal this track can be in those kinds of conditions. And so, the FIA wanting to be cautious, chose to wait till it dried out. And a lot of people, on the flip side of that argument, well, all these cars were trimmed out for wet, and they were denied a wet race where they made those gambles on Saturday, and it's in Parc Fermé, and then they couldn't change their cars, they didn't really have enough time to do all that. So, one of those things, Paul, is like, well, you red flag the race, they're sitting there in the fast lane with all of the easy ups, and you're thinking, well, why can't they just change it to a dry if they feel like the track's drying out? But that's a long process. You can't just go, Paul, and take a bunch of wing off the front of the car.
Twiddle a couple of knobs. No.
Yeah.
It's not that easy. And I think the teams that obviously looked at the weather and made their judgment on their setup for the weather they probably should have been racing in, really got a bad end of the stick, because ultimately, the race waited out and it became a dry race, and you could really tell that during the race. The cars that were set up for the wet with the bigger downforce, etc., just suffered and really had little chance to do much out there. Kimi Antonelli and
even Max.
Even Max, right?
Yeah.
Just didn't have anything for anybody because of that compromise in when the FIA decided to start the race.
Yeah, it's very tough. And, that rolling start, Paul, whether you could argue, to me, it seemed like a standing start was very on the table there. But they did a rolling start. And the byproduct of that was, Paul, all those people starting from pit lane didn't suffer. Matter of fact, most of them jumped Lance Stroll to start,
Yeah, right. They had a major advantage, right? Because they did to change their car. But it's interesting that whole scenario, too. That if you're at the back, why wouldn't you just start from pit lane every time?
Yeah,
because you're always making a compromise between qualifying and getting your setup locked in. And the race pace. I'm not sure that's necessarily the rule, or should be the rule going forward, really, because it does change a part here or there if it's broken. Absolutely, like for like, but I'm not sure you can change a whole car and restart from the back.
I guess you could always give them a drive-through, right? If it's a rolling restart, they've got to do a drive-through.
Yep. You could definitely do that. Yeah.
That would make sure that they're at the back and they didn't get an unfair advantage, because, if you were Alonso and you were third of the four cars that started in pit lane, you were in third. I'm just throwing out an example. But if you were third and the whole grid started, and then your first car starts, and then the second car starts, and the third car starts, you wouldn't have been able to gobble up Lance down Kemmel Straight. You'd have been far enough behind that it would have been, a penalty to start in the pit lane. Something they should think about. Well, let's talk about the race. Let's talk about how they finished. We're going to start off the sharp end with your friend Zach's team at McLaren, with Lando Norris in a P2 position after securing pole position, and Oscar Piastri, his teammate from the Great Southern Land, in P1. We'll start with Lando, Paul. Lando led from the rolling start. At the time, I thought when he jumped, I thought, ooh, he's jumping kind of early, earlier than I thought he would have. And Oscar read it perfectly. I mean, when Lando started, Oscar started. I mean, he was there, on his tail. And so he was on the gearbox. And when they came in, and I think, I don't know if you got to see Anthony Hamilton's dissecting of turn one at La Source, but Anthony did a really good job. He showed Oscar coming up behind Lando. Lando went in to the right to cover the corner, but Oscar set him up to do so, because Lando took an unnatural approach to the apex and a sharper turn in, and it gave Oscar a better apex and a wider turn in to come off to get on his gearbox through Eau Rouge and then up in Kemmel Straight. And so heading into Kemmel Straight, Lando lost the lead, and then there was this radio message about his battery pack. And I don't know, and I don't think we know as viewers, if that radio message was in relation to some issue he's having down Kemmel, or if that was a radio message from somewhere later in the lap.
Yeah, I think from from surmised it was later in the lap, because the other comment was, it was used up too much at the restart. So I'm assuming he just deployed it right at the start and then didn't have anything for the next lap. For
the straight, yeah.
But
and
those radio messages are weird, right? They can come in at any time, and you can, out of context comments, it's kind of like the whole Drive to Survive thing. Throw a comment in anywhere, it completely changes the complexion of what you think about these people.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of missing context, but I think there was even maybe a radio message that Oscar had a battery issue too. Anthony said that the systems learn. So when you're going around at a slow pace in the rain and not braking like you normally would, then they learn where to deploy. And then when you get on it and you start going, it takes them a little bit to learn where to harvest and where to deploy.
Interesting.
So I thought that was an interesting thing. And so
you would think they'd have a pre-learn.
I know.
From previous. It's like kind of like you can install laps onto the dash.
Yeah,
your plus and minus, and you can base it off your qualifying lap on a practice lap or whatever. And I would have thought you could have that process switched off during pace car laps. So it's just remembering from an actual proper lap, not
proper lap,
not a pace car lap.
Right. When it's go time, you're going to switch that system, the ERS, into an actual race lap deployment, not a learned lap deployment. Right. Then once you get in the race, you could allow it that time to learn and optimize. But I thought that was interesting. So anyway, so Oscar got on the tail, got around. Having lost the lead, though, I do think, Paul, it was a real heads-up call by McLaren to put him on the hard compounds. I think that was the right call. Then he made a few mistakes. I counted 3. One at Pouhon, a couple maybe at La Source. And at the time, Crofty said, he lost, 3/10 there or 9/10 there. And he was sort of surmising that had Lando not made those 3 mistakes, he would have, been right there, passing Oscar or whatever it might have been. I appreciate what he's saying. And would he have been closer to Oscar at the end of the race had he not scrubbed off, a second or two? Probably, for sure. And as you've talked about in the past, you make a mistake at La Source, you carry it through Malmedy.
Right.
That's the reality of Spa.
That is reality.
And it is so hard to recapture 7/10 on somebody on a lap that long, right?
Yeah. And the pit stop, right?
And the pit stop, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like, as much as I appreciate that sort of dissecting Lando's race, I don't want to overlook what, to me, really happened in the race. Lando's loss of P1, in my mind, had less to do with Lando and any sort of small errors he did or didn't make, and a lot more to do with what Oscar actually did, which was a fantastic setup into La Source, a fantastic pass down Kemmel Straight in the slipstream before DRS to take the lead. And then, then he had the high ground. He gets the first pit stop at the right time and all of that stuff. And then he comes out on mediums and makes those and manages those tires to the very end, and even had pace in hand to set quicker laps the last 2 or 3 laps on his mediums. Right. So, and I don't want to put words or thoughts in Lando's mouth here, but I think that's kind of what Lando was saying post-race in the interview. He said, look, I made a couple of errors, and I'll look at it, but look, Oscar deserved the race win. He had a great race, and it wasn't because Lando didn't want to dwell on his errors. I just don't know that the errors are what we really should be talking about. What we probably should be talking about is an incredibly well-executed race by Oscar Piastri, should we not?
Yeah. I mean, a little bit of both, right? I mean, that's what it's coming down to, this championship.
True,
right?
True.
It's like tenths of a second. Very much when we were looking at Nico Rosberg trying to beat Lewis Hamilton, he couldn't make one single error. And it feels like Norris cannot make one single error on Piastri.
Right.
Obviously, the pit stop didn't help. I think he lost a second or so in there at least. That was a pretty bad pit stop for them. Would that put him in DRS range if he hadn't have made those mistakes? Maybe, perhaps.
Maybe.
But also you got to think, Oscar's not stupid. Oscar is very, very good. And he's measuring his pace for the tire so that he has something in hand. I mean, as you alluded to, his last couple laps, he could throw down a little bit more pace there because
exactly
he'd kept that in his little toolbox should Lando somehow catch back up to him.
Right.
And drive a perfect race to get on his tail. So he's conserving. He's maybe not using all the pace he had to make those tires last, but also to have something to fight with at the end. So we don't know. Yeah, Lando made a couple of mistakes that maybe cost him a couple of seconds, and maybe the pit stop would have got him in closer, but was that enough? Because Oscar probably could have turned up the wick just a little bit as well, and didn't make any mistakes at all. And that's what Lando has a really hard battle ahead. I mean, they both have big battles because Lando's no slouch, and Oscar's be on the top of his game to beat Lando at any weekend as well. So
You're absolutely spot on. I'm not trying to take the stuffing out of Lando. I think he's a fantastic racer. I think you're absolutely right. It is down to tenths, and it's very, very tight. But I think on this weekend, I just think Oscar had the measure of it.
I mean, the big move was the big move, right?
Yeah.
But then, and he did everything perfect after that. So
yeah, he did. And to your point, you say, well, he came out, there was 9 seconds, he dropped it to 7 seconds, then he was down to 6 seconds, and then, he made those 3 errors, and he was back up to 8 seconds, and had he not made those errors, what's to suggest that by the time, let's say he didn't make any errors, and when he got to 3 seconds behind Oscar, do we think that's as fast as Oscar could have gone? No. No, he was managed his pace, managed his tires. He would up the game too. So whether or not he could have got there, I really question whether even without those mistakes he'd have gotten to DRS range. I don't know, but
I still think Oscar was managing his power delivery too. So I'm sure he would have known when Lando would reach him and have enough power to fight off those DRS.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good race. It's a McLaren 1-2. I mean, there's not a lot to complain about. Right?
No, not really.
I mean, it was a great race, and I thought Lando had a really good weekend. But I just think Oscar, he just laid it down and measured it out and executed perfectly. I mean, and I'm a big Lando fan. I get it, but Oscar, it's hard not to like Oscar. The guy's very good.
Very good.
Let's talk about Ferrari. Charles Leclerc P3, Lewis Hamilton P7. We'll start with Charles. Charles had a good start. I was wondering if he was going to be sort of easy picking down Kemmel Straight with Max, with that slipstream, like Lando and like Max did to Oscar in sprint. But he didn't. And I thought, well, that's interesting, that the Ferrari held its own against Max. Had a good stop, a very good stop, managed to stay ahead of Max during that stop. Then Max, for basically the entire race, Charles was being hunted by Max Verstappen for the entire race. And that's a lot of pressure. I don't care who you are. If I was driving a race, the last
and he did make a couple of errors, but got away with it too.
He did. He got away with it very closely. It was La Source, one of them, I think, and so narrowly got away with it. The last guy he'd want hunting, he was Max, but he did it, and it turned into actually a good race. Now, unfortunately, Paul, and we've talked about this in the past too, Spa, due to its length, certainly exposed just how much better the McLarens were. They, Charles and Max finished 20 seconds off the lead. I mean, is that, if you want to know what the measuring stick in performance around that, that's what the McLaren's capable of. Now, everything is track specific, of course, and setup specific, but that's what it's capable of, and Spa's a tendency to expose that. So as much as I think it was a great podium for Charles, and holding off Max in the Red Bull, I think was a great move for the Constructors' Championship, and it was, and where Lewis placed 2 with points. Great for Ferrari, but a little sobering to be that far behind the McLarens for Charles.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think he should be very happy, though. And obviously, that pit stop and keeping himself ahead of Max was very important because, if Max had clean air and was in front, he may have been able to use that downforce to get some kind of a gap. I don't know. Yeah. But obviously Max was a little handicapped by the wet setup that the Red Bull had on. So he needed some help to get by Charles, and Charles didn't give him enough help to allow the passing. But yeah, Charles made a couple of mistakes. So he made one at the source and at the last chicane. But he managed to keep that gap just enough where those little mistakes didn't bite him. So I think he should be very, very happy with third place, because that's the best thing he could do versus the McLarens this weekend.
Yeah, Charles said, quote, "Once we were on slicks, I knew I just had to keep my head down and push for P3, and P3 would be ours, and it is. So I'm very happy we brought it home. Our upgrades brought what we expected, and we need to keep learning to maximize their potential." And Lewis this weekend really kind of started off ragged. I kind of felt bad with that spin at the formerly known as the butt stop chicane.
Right.
And it sounded weird. I think Anthony's right. When they replayed it back, you could hear the gears grinding, and it was like a rear axle lockup.
Yeah.
And it looked weird because you wouldn't see Lewis just coming into the bus stop and the whole back end coming around.
That's kind of a thing that happens with this fly-by-wire braking, that things can go a little haywire sometimes, and no driver can catch it. It did look like someone yanked up the handbrake for sure.
Yeah, not Lewis's fault. Lewis doesn't typically do anything like that. When you see Lewis run wide and stuff, it's typically in free practice where he's really finding the limits of a car and the limits, and he tends to do that, but not there. So that was difficult, but they made the setup. He started from pit lane, but he didn't actually start from pit lane. He passed 3 cars on one lap and dragged his way all up into P7. A great run from him. You'd expect it from a guy like Lewis. This on top of, Paul, for a large portion of the race, the team were telling him he had to lift and coast. And it almost sounded fuel related, oddly enough, is what I heard later. I don't know if that's true. But Lewis, I think the real linchpin for Lewis was he was the first guy to stop for mediums. Yeah. And he timed it impeccably. And he made the absolute, because everybody that pitted after that was varying levels of worse, and the ones that stopped the last during the crossover, they didn't fare well at all. No. So that critical timing to jump in and be the first guinea pig who jumped in, came out, made hay with it, and clawed all the way up into P7. A great, it's a champion's drive. It's a great drive. It was a great drive.
And then kudos to Ferrari for pulling the pin and he's doing the pit lane start and changing his setup. Obviously, he was very, very unhappy for the whole weekend till this point when they figured something out. Charles is like, "Oh yeah, the upgrades work. The car feels great." Lewis wasn't saying any of those things.
No, he wasn't.
So I don't know what was going on there. He obviously struggled mightily in both qualifyings for the sprint and for the main race, and so it was a tough weekend till it came to that point. And then whatever they did to the car was perfect for the conditions.
Yeah,
he drove great. The call, whether it be his or the team's to come in, was the perfect one, and he made the most of it. Usually on those, the first car to come in isn't the best move. We saw that a couple of races ago when Alonso tried it and someone else tried it, and they were just not ready. It wasn't ready. And usually that first person in, I usually would never want to be that first car in, because and then everyone's pinning, watching your sector times, and you're the guinea pig for everyone else to make a better decision. But was the first one in, and it was the right decision, which doesn't happen very often. So kudos to Ferrari and Lewis for making that, and he just shot up the standings. I mean, just kept knocking one person after the next. It was a mighty drive, mighty call, and it was fantastic for him. He really needed that after his weekend at that point. Yeah. I
agree. It was looking like it was going to be a pretty ragged weekend for him, but he turned that around, he and the team. Red Bull, Max Verstappen P4, Yuki Tsunoda P13. Max, interesting weekend given his sprint win on Saturday in that low downforce config for his car. Took the slipstream at the front, leading you to always think that maybe pole position at Spa isn't the best thing to do. But then they trimmed his car out for wet weather. He just didn't have wet weather. It wasn't wet weather race by the time they really started. It was just changing conditions and dry. Yeah. And he just did not have the pace to get by Leclerc, which is pretty shocking if you consider where they were for most of the season so far. One might argue the car was ready for a wet race, but most of his race was in dry conditions. That spoiled their efforts. And even though it does suggest that it's such a fine line, it's clear that Red Bull's success this year has been from the hands of Max in very track/condition specific situations. And I was thinking during this weekend, to see, on Saturday in low downforce, he wins. On Sunday in wet downforce, it dries out. He can't get by the Ferrari. What a far cry from 2023 this team is, right? Yeah.
Or it was just the wrong call for the wrong time, for the wrong conditions, as we said.
At the wrong track. Yeah.
I mean, he had the right call for the sprint.
Yep.
All right, perfect, and everything's working fine. It makes you wonder, what do you really want to do in the sprint? Because it really shows your cards. And I think McLaren learned a lot from what the Red Bull team setup was for the sprint. Yeah. And so they were able to evaluate what Max did and able to change some things on their setup to thwart what Max could do during the big race. So what do what's the strategy there in the sprint? If you're one of those top, do you really want to throw it all out there? Do you want to have some little tricks up your sleeve that you're saving for Sunday?
But you can't ignore points.
But you can't ignore points, yeah. So, but I think they kind of fully exposed what the car could do and what the trimming out could achieve on the race, and that if you were trimmed out, you could actually hold people back that maybe had a better car, and that's what you did in the sprint. So.
Markedly different. He was fast in Sector 1 on Saturday, fast in Sector 2 on Sunday, right?
Exactly. So they went the other way and got it a bit wrong, honestly. Or did the FIA get a bit wrong and they became the culprits and lost out because of the call on when to start the race.
Yeah, agreed. I also, as a side note, I found Max's radio conversations with Laurent, his team boss, quite a bit different than it was previously all season long with Christian. Now, if you think about it, go back and listen to races he's won or he's done. And Christian, first it was GP saying, great job. And great job, team, blah, blah, blah. And then Christian would always come on and say, great race, Max. That was a great drive. And he said, yeah, it was good. Yeah, that was it. He didn't have anything to say. This weekend, it was like, oh, thank you, Laurent. Yeah, thanks for the, it's a,
thanks for the fruit basket.
Yeah, exactly.
The kid's coming over for dinner tomorrow. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for firing Christian. My dad didn't like him. It's quite a difference. If you're wondering, you can listen to those. You can tell some of the power play. Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki fell prey. We mentioned, Paul, Lewis nailed it on the crossover.
Yeah.
Yuki, not as much, right? On that conversion, he boxed a little later. That dropped him 5 places. Now the points, he was running in the points, and that dropped him out. Very difficult to claw his way back. He did like his new floor that he had. It had a little better confidence, a better qualifying session, but couldn't prevent him from sinking from 11th down to 13th. A difficult day, but not as difficult as we've seen.
Yeah, but still not good.
Still difficult. I know.
I mean, if he gets it all right, he gets 2 points?
I know.
The qualifying was better, that it looked better, but in the race, didn't look much better to me.
And right now, you're kind of like, get out of the car! Get out of the car.
Yeah, still not there. I didn't see any big revelations, quite honest.
And this is what I found. He said this, quote, there was a misunderstanding between myself and the team, and they called me in a little bit late on the last corner. At that point, I had passed the pit entry already, which was unfortunate, end quote.
Yeah.
So there you go.
It happens.
Was it a misunderstanding? I don't know. You make the call. Wrong.
I don't know. I don't know if Christian would have let that happen.
I don't know. Yeah, you wonder if Laurent might say, all right, well, Yuki, let's, yeah.
We got another car out there? Oh, sorry, I thought you were...
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, boy. All right, Mercedes, George Russell, P5, Kimi Antonelli, lack of confidence. A real confidence problem, Paul, apparently, according to the press. Let's start with George, though, because GR, kind of a ragged weekend, really, for George. Had a good start, got Albon at the beginning, seemed to be hounding Max at the very beginning. I thought, well, Max can't get around the Ferrari Leclerc. George is catching up with it. Oh, man, maybe Max is going to start sinking backwards, and then we could see George and Leclerc going at it. But then, once the track started to dry out, he just didn't have the pace to challenge Max at that point. Ended up barely being on TV at all. I mean, he enjoyed his own private race to fifth at this point. But gosh, Paul, surely a P5 in a car that's not interested in the podium, it has to be good enough for a new contract, isn't it?
Well, it depends who's knocking on the door also, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. If Max is thinking about jumping, it doesn't matter what George is going to do, honestly.
No, it doesn't.
It's not going to change it. So
no.
But, I mean, I think he was... Yeah, I was surprised because it seemed like he had some legs on it, and I thought he was going to get Max. But
I
then
did too.
He had a little bit of a scuffle, but then Max kind of gapped him, and he just kind of fell adrift at that point. Once he was out of the DRS range, he didn't have anything left. So
yeah, he couldn't strike. Still, pulled it together, came on P5. It's a good result, I think, given what he had in his hands. I think it was a decent result.
Yeah,
and especially when you compare that to his teammate Kimi Antonelli. Kimi had a battle of a day. I mean, he was in
battle of a weekend.
Yeah, he was up to his eyeballs in tumult. Lewis made quick work of him, but he didn't have the pace to claw his way back through the field like Lewis did. Kimi seemed to struggle like Max did with a wet setup that didn't really see a wet race, so he was hobbled by that. Had a battle with Ocon and Alonso. I thought those were the closest, battles for a good portion of the race, and that's all the TV coverage focused on. And I was to the point, I was like, well, could you at least show, Oscar and Lando kind of
go by, give
me a reference, or what about the whole time they're showing that, and I'm thinking, well, but Max is there's 10 laps left. Max is going for the podium. He's only like 1.5 seconds back from Charles. Should we not show that?
Yeah.
But anyway, he did have a good battle. But, what a difference, though. He's, sorry about that. No, don't worry about it. No big deal. No big deal. Kimi, you're fine.
We
don't worry about
understand.
it. We totally get it, right? What a difference between how Mercedes reacts to Kimi versus how Alpine reacts to Jack Doohan, or Franco Colapinto soon, or Red Bull acts to Liam Lawson, or
anybody.
Anybody, yeah. When a young driver is struggling in the other teams, I mean, it's throw them to the rabid dogs. But over at Mercedes, it's no worries. Oh, don't worry about the front weekend. We got more.
Who needs a hug? Come on. Who needs a hug?
Who needs a hug? Come on. Well, he's only 18 for crying out loud. It's when you put him there, you knew he was 18.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Toto and Susie took him down to the pet shop, bought him a little puppy and an ice cream.
Got him an ice cream? Yeah. Yeah.
It is weird. He did struggle bad. It was a bad weekend for him.
Yeah,
he's had a kind of a little succession of bad runs.
DNFs.
He needs to shake that off and show us what he's got. I mean, he is fast for sure. So
he is good, no doubt about it.
His confidence, whatever. I think the setup was bad. That didn't help him.
Yeah, it's got to be hard, Paul, to be 18. You're thrown into the deep end. You're with George Russell, seasoned veteran. George's producing. George's on podium. You're trying to get your sea legs. I'm sure Toto and team and Bono have had conversations. Don't stress yourself out. Don't pressure. This is a learning year for you. Just learn. Don't worry about the results. Let's learn, and they're trying to build a champion, right?
Yeah.
And I would argue Kimi's got every earmark of a potential champion for sure. He's incredibly fast, and we've seen that. So, this is just going to take time. And Crofty is always quick to say, well, he's got a coach, and Valtteri Bottas. I'm like, I don't know.
Valtteri's really looking for a ride.
He's looking for a ride. Is that really the best coach for Kimi Antonelli, Valtteri? I mean, that's like ushering Kimi Antonelli into a Wes Anderson movie at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, just maybe get a different coach.
Someone that's not trying to get a ride back into Formula One would help.
I mean, I don't know. Valtteri doesn't seem like the arm around the shoulder, warm, fuzzy kind of guy to me. No. But maybe he is. I don't know.
He'll take you into the sauna and beat you with some branches or something. Come on, wake up, kid.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the dynamic there is George and Valtteri, two people that have no skin in the game to helping Kimi be better or literally care where he goes. That's Toto. That's Toto.
It is Toto.
And could the conspiracy theories here we go? Could the whole contract negotiations and everything be inspiring George and maybe not be as open with Kimi? Not so many arms around the shoulder and come on, let me tell you how to do this and how this. Here's my setup. Here you go. These springs, these shocks. These are my gifts to you. I wouldn't. No. I'm George. I would not be. I would be not giving any information that wasn't necessarily pulled from me, pulling a tooth out of my head.
I mean, let's be honest. I'm sure George is being amenable about the whole relationship. But in truth, George doesn't give a tinker's damn about Kimi's future or his career. No, George is there for his career.
Exactly. And you'll see, as they maybe there's some data that has to be transferred, but there's a lot of words that don't have to be said. Yes. And if I was George, I wouldn't be saying them.
I wouldn't say them.
And with Valtteri, he's trying to, I don't know, maybe he's getting a paycheck, but we know Valtteri, his career is not built on how well Kimi Antonelli ends up and how many races he wins. It's Valtteri still looking out the door and giving his CVs off to all the teams as he leaves every night. So
yeah, that's exactly right.
Also, they're going to help him that much. And
so, no, it's down to Toto and Bono at this point.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So there you go. Let's see. Williams, Alex Albon, P6, Carlos Sainz, P18. Albon, if I'm honest, I'm not sure where Alex's pace came from. And either I just wasn't paying attention earlier in the weekend or watching close enough on Friday and Saturday. I just didn't feel like come race day on Sunday that Williams really had that pace. But, the more, I don't know, his car was set up for more of a dry race, and so it came on song, right? Mm-hmm. And I know the world gave Lewis driver of the race, and I applaud that. Lewis had a great race. But keep in mind, Alex Albon's the driver in a Williams that kept Lewis back, that held him off for several laps, right, in a Williams. Yeah. I thought it was fantastic. He couldn't keep George behind him early on in the wet, but he wasn't really set up for a wet. And once it dried out, he really came on song, had terrific defensive driving, keeping the 7-time champ. Because, if you're Alex Albon, you have to keep Lewis behind you. Because if you don't, he'll punt you like he did a couple times in the past. So, you got to keep him behind you. And he did. It was a great race for Alex.
It was a great race for them. I mean, they just got everything right. I mean, he qualified in a good position, so that put him in good stead. And I think they committed to the dry race. And as we saw, there was a big losers and winners in that scenario with which choice you made for the end. And we know the Williams strength inherently is straight line, fast turns, Spa kind of track. And I think they just went for it full throttle and it paid off. And it worked. Yeah. It didn't work for Carlos. Carlos had a tough race. He started from pit lane. Well, he didn't actually start from, it was a rolling start. But anyway, so they made changes. It was difficult. He made up the setup changes to a wet race, but then that cost him, right? As the race dried out, that didn't really help him, and he was at the very back and had a lot of work to do and couldn't do it. It makes you wonder. They tried a two-stopper with him too.
And that didn't help either. So starting in the pit lane or at the back, then a two-stopper, set up for a wet race. It was really a dry race. That was difficult. It makes you wonder, Paul, if he's now in the dog days of the reality of signing for Williams on the hope that it was going to become a plucky team fighting for podiums.
Yeah.
And I think maybe he knew it was more long-term than this year. But I wonder if sometimes he doesn't have any buyer's remorse about signing there when you're watching Bordoletto and Nico Hülkenberg on the podium and the Audi offer that he turned down. I'm just wondering.
I mean, it's a tough call, right? It seemed like it was a lower level entry, considering not necessarily where Sauber is, but where Audi should become in the future. I mean, they've had some good races with him. He hasn't had a great shake of it recently, so I'm not going to make a big, devastating, oh my god, the team's bad kind of thing. Because obviously we saw that Albon did. It's just a matter of they threw some dice at Albon's car that worked out, and they went with an opposite strategy for Carlos, which makes sense.
Makes
right?
sense.
The teams, either way,
Haas did the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, they're both great drivers, so they know either one, if one of these is going to work and they're going to execute and get some points for us, and that's what happened. And Albon was the one that got the lucky roll of it. But unfortunately for Carlos, he just didn't have a hope, and throwing new tires on it, this car's still dragging down the straight, and there's nothing you can do.
Nothing you do. Racing Bulls, Liam Lawson, P8, Isaac Hedger, P20. We'll start with Liam. Liam and Isaac were both running in 9th and 8th, respectively. So Isaac in 8th, Liam in 9th early on. But it was interesting. They boxed Liam first, although he's running behind Isaac. And then he retained his position in doing so. And he battled to retain 8th and stayed in the points. A good result given the issues that Isaac had with his car. It was a good result from Liam to battle up in P8, not get gobbled up by the cars behind him. Kind of like Alex, drove a good race, defensive race, held in there and scored some points. It was a good result for the team.
Yeah, absolutely good result. And
it's a good confidence boost for him, I got to think.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a few good runs recently. I haven't seen a dip in performance. He's been scoring some points. He's kind of back where he was when we entered the team, and the expectations of how quick he was, etc. And Isaac hasn't disappointed. His pace has been great, but I think, we were following Isaac a little bit, and I was like, his pace was just not there. So I think there was something wrong from very early on, and he just couldn't, even though he was strong right at the beginning, I think it just fell off, and he was kind of in no man's land, and probably should have retired the car earlier. But I'm not sure what the issue is, but he's definitely having some kind of technical issue from about third of the race in.
Yeah, that's when Alan Permain said it. Plagued him from lap 8 onward.
Yeah, okay.
And then it starts to make sense maybe why they boxed Liam first, because at that point they probably realized that Isaac is a bit of a wounded duck out there running around. So we're going to prioritize Liam. We're going to box him first because he isn't having an issue. Liam is. That makes sense to me that you would do that.
Absolutely.
If you knew that Isaac's car had an issue, right? It was nothing against Isaac or favoring Liam. I just thought it was the wise choice.
Doing an incredible job, and still did this weekend too.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and with a dodgy car. Yeah, I think he did all right. Let's see. Sauber, Gabriel Bordoletto, P9, Nico Hülkenberg, P12. Gabby had a decent race. He's been doing well of late. They talked to Matteo Binotto, and Matteo made the comment that Gabby's been doing really well. And what they really liked him about, he's been incredibly consistent this whole season. Not making huge errors. He's just been really consistent. And they like that. He swapped positions with Nico because he was quicker after the stop. But he couldn't really make any inroads against Lawson at that point. Finishing P9, doing real well. Strong weekend in Belgium. And we've talked about that before, Paul, when you're kind of a team where they're making this evolution into becoming Audi. They've got these drivers there. They've got a veteran like Hülkenberg. They want Gabby. They want that consistency so they can measure upgrades, so they can measure car performance. You've talked about that before, and so that's probably why they do like him.
Yeah, no, he's doing an incredible job, really. I mean, and no one expected the Sauber to be this quick at all. It certainly looked hopeless at the beginning of the year, so they turned it around well. But he certainly seems to be able to run with Hülkenberg, which is no small feat. He's pretty calm about it. He's not. I think he's pretty confident, but not cocky. So yeah, I mean, I don't. I think we talked about this last time. He was only a one-year contract maybe with this deal.
I
mean, I'm sure that team are seriously thinking about him with the Audi program.
Yeah, they probably should.
I think they should. I think they should.
I do too.
With Nico, it was interesting why they pitted him at the end there. I mean, it was always going to be a hard job to fight through all those cars, especially as Spa is, as I said before. It's like there's a lot less slowing down points now and a lot more just flat out straight line stuff. So it's hard for a driver to make up the difference even on fresh tires. Yeah,
I've got some insight to that. He boxed right on time, like Lewis did, came out in front of Gabby, but then Bordeaux swapped with him. Then he tried that two-stop. That didn't work, and I thought, why did he box? Because he was running in the points, and he boxed out of the points.
Right. Why would you do that?
Why would you do that for track position, given that there was only a handful of laps left? Here's what he said, quote, "Missing out of the points at the end by just a second is obviously disappointing. We had to make a second stop with around 11 laps to go. My front tires were dropping off significantly, and I was struggling with front locking and understeer. Staying out wasn't really an option, especially with our higher downforce setup compared to Pierre Gasly behind, who was running lower downforce."
Gotcha.
So that's why he did.
Right.
So there you go. Let's see. Speaking of Pierre Gasly, Alpine, Pierre Gasly in P10, Franco Colapinto in P19. Pierre made the most of a wet weather race, or at least setup, climbing all the way up into the points. But as the track dried out, he had to defend like hell to keep that all the faster cars behind him. I think Pierre's right there could be considered his driver of the race. I mean, just a fantastic race. Very impressive, considered that they had opted for the low downforce setup for him and how well he did in the wet and the early on with the low downforce, right?
Right.
So once again, I just feel like Pierre's depriving a good team of an exceptional driver, if I'm honest.
Yeah, he's really driving the wheels off that thing. And the pressure of all that line of cars, what do you have, 4 or 5 cars behind him?
Yeah.
And to not make a mistake, because as soon as you made a mistake, it would be a freight train going by him.
Yeah.
So he did a phenomenal job making use of that straight line speed, but then not making the mistakes in the corners where, the cars with more downforce would be ready to pounce. So an incredible job. And it's a shame it only ekes in 1 point.
I know.
This team is struggling for points. They need more, but if they're going to get a point, then Gasly's the guy that's going to make it happen.
Yeah, for sure. Then there's Franco Colapinto. Let's see. He was on low downforce setup, but could not make the most of it like Pierre did until it dried out. And then I think he got a little quicker. He started to have some decent run once it dried out in the changing conditions. Still struggled to find ultimate pace, though, that Pierre had found. The second stop really was to cover Carlos at that point. That put him basically ended up in the same zip code as Carlos, which is the completely different postal code than the rest of the grid. But that's kind of where, his race was, and they were just covering Carlos for that stop, but he was running in the back anyway.
Yeah, unspectacular for sure.
Yeah.
Occasionally, he has moments where he's moving up, but, maybe anyone does at some point, depending on tires and everything like that. But definitely the star shining on him has very much faded, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. A lot of talk about him being replaced soon.
By who, though?
Well, I said in my race review report, I said, I don't know, is it time to throw Jack back in?
Yeah, I would.
Jack was doing better than this.
He was, and the results certainly haven't improved since they've replaced him, that's for sure.
Well, it would have hurt.
Yeah.
And the fact that they haven't done that must tell you that there's money.
There's got to be money in there somewhere. He paid some money to get in the Williams that one time. It wasn't a lot, mind you.
Yeah.
So I don't think he has a ton of money behind him, but he has enough to maybe tip the balance between the guy that's being paid and him.
Yeah. Yep. Good point. Haas, Esteban Ocon, P15, Ali Behrman, P11. What became very evident was the cars that boxed one lap later than everyone during the crossover were severely disadvantaged, and Esteban was one of them. Mm-hmm. It's odd that they had opted for a low downforce setup for Esteban and a wet setup for Ali, and the results seem to be kind of swapped.
Right. So they seem counter of how everything else worked out for everybody.
Yeah. And Esteban said the team got it completely wrong on strategy. He said this, quote, "I think we got today completely wrong, sadly. We need to put everything together as a team. We had the decent pace in the car, especially later on when it's dry. We stayed 2 laps too long on the inters, and then I went on to used mediums, which we need to review, as it was obviously a performance loss," end quote.
Yeah.
Zing!
Yeah. Ocon did actually a pretty good job because
he did.
He kept Antonelli behind him, which I didn't think he was going to be able to do.
I didn't think so either. Yeah. I mean, he did a really good job with what he had.
Yeah, which wasn't much.
Which wasn't much. Ali down to P11 finishes better. Ali had a decent race, battled with Yuki. But once he got by, he ran out of laps really to take the fight to gas. I think he was trying to reel Pierre in a little bit and was doing so, but just kind of ran out of laps. I think, if he'd had a few more laps, woulda, shoulda, coulda, he may have been in the points. But he reckons they were late on the pit strategy as well. And he said he also had an engine issue, so that may have hampered him a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I thought he actually had a really good race. He had a good weekend. And
he did have a good weekend.
It was a shame
his Q3 was ruined by Yuki, but...
Right, exactly. So otherwise he would have been a lot further up. And he executed very well, and he charged up the field. So, I thought impressive considering he had the higher downforce setup as well.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I thought it was good. Aston Martin, Fernando Alonso, P17, Lance, and P14. Fernando was set up for a wet race, and even though they had upgrades this weekend, they didn't use those upgrades. The team then also tried a two-stopper with Fernando, and that just didn't work for anybody.
No.
And that left him down to P17. I love his quote here. Get this. This couldn't be more detached from the whole situation. He said, quote, "Unfortunately, things haven't gone our way this weekend in Belgium. We committed to a wet setup, but the race ended up being mostly dry and sunny. We managed to make up a few places to finish P17, but our pace still wasn't there. We brought a new package to the circuit, but it hasn't delivered the improvements we were hoping for," end quote.
Yeah, so he's having a good time then.
Yeah, so basically everything's good then.
Everything's good then.
Yep, it's going good.
Where's Adrian? Adrian!
Right. Yeah, he's in a different office. He left.
He left.
And then there's Lance. Lance finished better, P14, fared better because he was on a one-stopper, and I would say that was probably the reason he finished P14 instead of P16 or 18. And he said he lacked pace. He said it's quote, "It's been a tough weekend for us. We did what we could, and it was probably the most we could achieve today."
Yay.
So it's interesting because, Lance, Alonso was standing. Lance, you and I've talked, he's generally pretty good on these changing conditions like that. Just didn't really have a car or...
Yeah, I just think this track, if the setup isn't on that side, it's a bigger delta than probably other track. For sure.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah. Yeah, I'd say you're right. All right. Well, let's do some awards. That's kind of what we tend to do. First award we'd like to give out is, we tend to call that the move of the race.
Well, look faster, Todd.
I am looking. I'm looking at my notes. I know who I picked.
We'll do it live.
Yes. Paul, what'd you have move of the race?
I went with Lewis. Lewis Hamilton's pit in for new tires. Yeah. The timing, the judgment was perfect, and then the execution after that was great. But that move put him in a great position to move up the field, in which he thoroughly did, right? From the back to 7th, that was a good move.
It was a great move. Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
I had Oscar on Lando. I think that was, for me, the move of the race.
Pivotal move.
it was all done and dusted.
Yeah. How many more are we going to see through the year that we can say, that could be the championship right there. That could be the mental wins and points wins. Yeah. There's a lot of that going on.
See it going back and forth. My fantasy picks for this weekend was Oscar, Lando, Max.
Me too.
Just missed
Me too. I thought I had it too.
I did too. I thought I was watching Max and I thought, and I'm a Ferrari fan. I don't want anybody to pass Ferrari, but I'm thinking my fantasy, if Max can get around Charles, I nail the podium. You know,
the interesting, the points I didn't expect was Antonelli got the fastest lap and I picked him for the fastest lap of the race.
Did you really?
Which is crazy. That's a crapshoot.
That was a crapshoot. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I think I picked Oscar for fast lap. Oh boy! All right. Well, the next award we tend to hand out, we call this Donkey of the Race.
Stop yelling at Todd.
Yeah. Don't yell at me.
It's a shit box.
It is. All right, Paul. What'd you have? Are we aligned on this?
I think we're aligned on this. Probably us and the rest of the world going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But geez, the call on to go or not to go and when to go and how long do we wait. I think that was a bit of a hash.
Yeah, need to do a deep dive on that one. The whole and treat wet races. I mean, really actual wet race, not changing condition or drying or potential could be wet in the future, but actual wet races. It's raining at the start time, and you got to go. You know, they need to consider that as a product in the portfolio, and they need to really do a deep dive on that portion of their product.
Yeah, they need to analyze it for sure. There was definitely some misses there.
Yeah. All right. Well, the last word we hand out, we like it.
Seriously, Todd?
Yeah, seriously. It's drive of the race. Oh, yeah.
Get in there, Lewis. You like my bass? You like it?
I do like it. All right, Paul. Who'd you have?
Well, I'm going to go with Oscar. I mean, what a great move at the beginning. I didn't give him move of the race, but the execution and the pressure of Lando coming in on you and just a phenomenal, faultless race, which we're becoming to get used to from this man.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, that was a great result. I know the world gave Lewis, and that was well-deserved. A great race from the back of the grid to P17, no doubt. But I think Oscar sent a shot across Lando's bow for sure. Lando was a bit on a roll, coming into this race.
Right, it was. Yeah, you're right.
And Oscar may have just pumped the brakes on that. Thought that was a great result. I'll change it up. I'm going to give it to Alex. I think Alex had a fantastic race. And that guy that the rest of the world gave driver of the race, well, Alex held him off for P6. So I'm going to go with Alex. That's not easy to hold a 7-time champion Lewis Hamilton behind you. There's nothing easy about that.
Nope.
And so I'm going to give it to Alex. I thought a great defensive driving, great weekend for Alex, a great call from James and team. So I'll give it to them.
Very good.
All right. Well, that does it for this podcast. That's what we think. But we have the Hungarian Grand Prix this weekend, Paul, right?
Oh, boy. Okay. That's going to talk about one extreme to the other, right?
I know. Monaco without the walls, right?
Yeah, this is definitely full wings on this track.
Have you ever been to that track, Paul?
I have not.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. I always like to see everybody's on the water slides there on top of the hill. So, oh boy. Well, anyway, we will be back next weekend. But let us know what you think about this race. You can do that, theparkferme.com. If you like this podcast, share it with people. Share it on social media. If you watch us on YouTube, hit the like button, the bell icon, hit subscribe. If you're not subscribed, it doesn't cost you a penny. It doesn't cost you anything.
Nothing.
Nothing. And it helps us out. So we would appreciate it. And when you share it on social media and you quote us on social media, that helps us out. So do that.
Makes me feel good about myself too.
It does. It makes me feel good about Paul.
Affirmation. Daily affirmation.
It is, and it makes me feel really good about Paul's contribution to this podcast.
Yeah, because I'm waiting. I feel like, I could be on the outs. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Right. You could be working on your replacement right now.
To replace me. Yeah. So anyway, give us some love. If you like the podcast, give us a good review, those kind of things. We'd appreciate it. But a huge thank you has to go to our Patreon supporters, because we could not and would not do this podcast if it weren't for your support. So thank you very, very much. And for those that bought merch this weekend, I had the Belgian Grand Prix tee.
Yeah, I like that one.
Picked one of those up. Those are fun. Appreciate that a lot. So anyway, until we come back next week to do it all over again and review the Hungarian Grand Prix, Paul, thanks for joining us for the Belgian Grand Prix. We'll see you next week. And until next week, we'll do it all over. This is Todd.
And if anyone's up Wisconsin way, we're racing this weekend.
Oh, yeah. So stop by at IMSA.
Yeah, stop by. Say hi.
Say hi to Paul. He'll show you around. You can have a little rummage through the garage.
I'll give you a cookie or something, maybe. Who knows?
Maybe you can, get a bolt or something. I don't know. Pick up a
bolt.
Piston out of a GT3. Yeah, I bet they are. So, stop by and say hi to Paul. And we'll be back next week to do it all again. And until then, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camera, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over. I don't feel I've got to prove at all. I don't really want to prove anything. I started as an amateur.